Today, we're going to discuss arguably the most controversial cryptocurrency project out there, and that is Monero, and I will explain it to you as simply as possible. So Monero's advantage is that it's private and anonymous by design. Why do we even need anonymity? Isn't crypto anonymous? Isn't Bitcoin anonymous? Well, not really. Because of block explorers like Chainalysis, which can do a lot of investigatory work into where Bitcoin is coming from, and basically it leaves a crypto trail of sorts. You can see, because of the transparency of Bitcoin, the wallet addresses. You could see the amounts transacted. You could see, let's say with Ethereum or even with Bitcoin as well, you could look up the wallets and see how much is actually in the wallets. Nobody wants that. You don't want to have a bank account where anyone willy-nilly can see exactly how much is in there and what other transactions you have been making. So while transparency is great, it's actually something that users, even businesses or just crypto enthusiasts, don't appreciate. So how the heck is Monero more private and anonymous? Well, they have something called stealth addresses, and this hides the receiver's address. And then they have something called ring signatures, which hide the sender's address among a large group. So you don't quite know exactly who sent it. And also it has confidentiality as far as the transaction amount. Now, how did Monero get invented? Who the hell invented it? So in 2014 is when it launched. It was actually a fork of an early project called Bytecoin. And originally Monero actually had a different name. It was Monero, and it was developed by a community of privacy advocate developers. Now, because Monero is super private, you don't even need mixers to go ahead and hide the transactions and to clean the actual crypto. Because of this, a lot of governments and entities restrict or just ban Monero outright. So for instance, the centralized exchanges like Binance and Kraken, they delisted Monero in 2024. OKX delisted it in 2023. Coinbase never even touched it because Coinbase is worried about being super compliant. And as far as compliance goes, in Monero's case, the privacy features conflict with AML and KYC. AML is anti-money laundering, rules and regulations, and KYC is know your customer. This is where, let's say, the American government, they want banking institutions, anyone that's in finance, to actually know their customer and to vet them to make sure that it's not just mafia people or people that are blacklisted or Russian oligarchs or people trying to wash and launder money. Now, who uses Monero? Well, many say, hey, Monero's just used for illegal activities. It's used by a bunch of criminals on the dark web. It's used for money laundering to off-ramp secretly so that they don't have to pay taxes. And actually, just by watching this video on Monero, the IRS will probably audit you. So I apologize in advance. But jokes aside, the more benevolent reason that people use something like Monero is to protect your identity in oppressive regimes. Maybe you don't want to get tracked or surveilled. There are also instances where it's been used for private donations. So maybe you want to donate to a certain group, but you don't want to be affiliated with it, or maybe it could hurt your career. Monero really is a hedge against financial surveillance. Now, also, we have to discuss fungibility. This is something that Monero enthusiasts always say. Bitcoin is trash because it's missing the fungibility aspect of it. So what the heck are they talking about? Well, theoretically, one Bitcoin doesn't really equal another Bitcoin. So all the Bitcoins out there, so currently there's like 19.6 million in the circulating supply, but some Bitcoin are actually tainted because you could trace it back to illegal activity or to seizures or to scams. And if you go ahead and grab one of those Bitcoins and then you try to, let's say, off-ramp through Coinbase and you send it to your Coinbase account, Coinbase is probably going to freeze your account and investigate or report you. Now, in Monero's case, since all of the transactions are private by default, it's actually thought of as more fungible than Bitcoin and a lot of the other cryptos out there. So now that we understand that, Let's take a look at the tokenomics of the project, and then I'll give you some of my personal thoughts on it. So the ticker symbol for Monero is XMR on the crypto exchanges, and you could see here that Monero is actually the number 23rd largest crypto project as far as market cap is concerned. It has a total market cap of 6.38 billion. You can also see here that the total supply is 18.44 million XMR, and that equals the circulating supply, which is 18.44 million XMR. Now, does that mean that there will only ever be 18.44 million Monero? No. You could see here that the max supply is infinite because it actually is an inflationary crypto. It will always go up in its total supply and thereby the circulating supply. Now, some frown upon that and say it's bad, but if you actually want to use something as a currency, as a medium of exchange, rather than just hoard it as a store of value, you actually need a bit of inflation. A small amount of inflation is necessary, otherwise people just hoard it because they could buy tomorrow more stuff with it than they could buy today, which incentivizes to not have a robust economy with people spending it, but rather than just keeping it as a store of value. So what do I mean by the max supply being infinite, and exactly how much is the total supply and circulating supply going to be increasing by? Well, initially when Monero launched in 2014, it started with a main emission curve, and this basically created 18.4 million XMR over several years. Now we're in the phase of tail emission. So this is everything that happened after May of 2022. And what happens now is XMR will be created at a fixed rate of 0.6 XMR per block. And a block is created every 2 minutes. So why is there a tail emission? Well, it's to keep the miners incentivized forever. So unlike Bitcoin, which has a hard cap of 21 million, Monero ensures that there's always a reward to keep the network secure and to incentivize miners. So this results in slight inflation like we just discussed, but it does become lower over time relative to the total supply. It also makes things predictable and sustainable as far as rewards go. Now, why do miners mine? What are the block rewards and fees? So basically each block rewards the miner with 0.6 XMR plus the transaction fees. And the fees are also private and they're based on transaction size. So again, the privacy of XMR, of Monero, is so helpful because it's truly fungible. One Monero is always identical to another Monero. They are fully interchangeable because they're untraceable. And again, stuff like Bitcoin, certain ones can be tainted because they've been flagged for past illegal quote-unquote activities. So with that being said, let's take a look at what's been happening with the price. If you scooped up Monero in 2015, you would actually be sitting at a profit of 161,000%. This is an incredible rise that Monero has had. You can see that it hit an all-time high May 7th of 2021, so that was 4 years ago, but we actually started approaching that recently. So take a look. Over the past year, you're sitting at 143% gain if you bought it exactly a year ago, but you can see that the high went all the way up to about $420. So we're almost approaching that all-time high if it kept running. Now, right now, if you look at the past month, you'll see that there's been quite a slump. So over the past 7 days, it's down 12%. But Monero is a very, very interesting project. A lot of people have made a ton of money. The problem is off-ramping. It's very hard to off-ramp with XMR unless you really, really know what you're doing. Now, what am I personally doing? Am I taking advantage of these rises? Am I heavy into Monero? So personally, if I was a 21-year-old cypherpunk that hates the government, doing shady gray area stuff or trying to avoid taxes or whatever, I might be very inclined to fiddle around with Monero. But currently, I just don't have a bull case for it because, again, I think a lot of the moves, they happen when unsettling things occur. So for instance, if governments crack down or stuff like the Russian war starts up, then people are really looking to park their money into certain cryptos that are extremely private, untraceable, so that people don't know how they transact with them. They're trying to preserve their wealth. Again, in places like Russia, when the war started, I mean, all of their wealth was getting eroded. Their stock market completely imploded, completely crashed. It was frozen for a while. And the Russian government is watching closely to make sure that people aren't just sending funds overseas. So are governments like America. They're making sure that these Russian oligarchs don't go ahead and bring their money over in certain illegal ways, right? But with Monero, it becomes very tricky because it's untraceable. So it's kind of like washing the dirty money or questionable money, and then you can go ahead and transact with it or try to off-ramp with it. Personally, as someone who's an enthusiast in crypto, I'm very excited by the project. I follow the project, I research the project, and it's been fascinating. But as far as an investment, I can't really formulate a healthy thesis of why this is going to appreciate in price. And I do think it's quite a risky investment. And even if I could just buy Monero on Coinbase willy-nilly, I don't think that I would be investing in it because I just don't see a way that it's going to continue to appreciate over time. Again, remember, there is the inflation issue. The one thing that I think will help Monero over time is if there are all these governments that start cracking down on crypto and there's a ton of financial surveillance and weird things happening and people say, you know what? I want to be invisible with the way that I transact. I want to look into these cryptographic means of holding currency and transacting with it. I think right now Monero is the clear winner in that sense. So with that being said, I'm curious on your thoughts as far as Monero is concerned. Do you think it's a good investment, bad investment? Are you excited about the project? Do you think it's a bunch of criminals just using it for criminal activity? Or do you think a lot of people are just being wise and prudent about being off the grid as far as transactions and their wealth is concerned? Would really love to hear from you. Let me know in the comment section, and also let me know which project you wish for me to cover next. A lot of people asked for Monero and XMR, so here I am covering it, and I hope you appreciate no sponsors, no affiliate links, not selling you on any courses, not asking you to do anything. I don't even care if you like this video, subscribe. Just them trying to learn with the rest of you. So I wish you guys lots of peace and prosperity, not only in your crypto portfolios, but in your personal lives as well. And I'll see some of you, or hopefully all of you, in the next video.